All right, everybody. Thank you for joining another edition of Benfica After 90. I got a very good friend that doesn't really need an introduction, but Mr. Mike, I guess, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mara. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. So, international break, not much going on. One international break. So we're going to talk about clerical duties, administrative duties.
Yeah.
Some people seem to care about lately. So
Yeah.
I figured it'd be worth a little bit of time, a few minutes of our time, I guess, to discuss. But yeah, I guess we'll start off. There's a lot to cover in the sense that we've just had the election. The results are coming out now.
Yeah.
Rui Costa seems to pretty much be the president of Benfica, and right now it's just a debate if he is looking at 80% support or 90% support or 85, but clear majority support.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, I don't think anybody should be surprised. I think this was kind of the writing's been on the wall. I'm sure people out there are disappointed because there was definitely strong support in both camps, but I don't think anyone should be surprised that it came out this way.
Yeah, and I think maybe to touch on the disappointment, which is kind of interesting, is going back to how this all happened. So we had the scandal with Luis Vieira, things of the sort, and Rui Costa became interim president. So he made it very clear back in the summer, late summer, that we're going to have an election this fall, and everyone was like, okay, this is going to happen. He had Neroni Lopes come out, and it looks like he was gearing up to run again, and there was a lot of issues and a lot of fair questions to be asked, and a lot of demands from the socios. We want transparency, we want debates, we want this, we want that. And to Rui Costa's credit, he delivered, man. He kind of said, okay, we're going to have, some people were cynical. Some people were, and I can understand why they were nervous. Maybe he's not even going to host an election, right? But he did it as promised. He, several months, people knew this was going to happen. Then eventually he noticed, okay, here's going to be the date. We're going to do some debates. But before we got to that stage, we had basically he had said it'd be later in the fall. And in that summer, we had the playoff run. And there was a lot of talk with Lopes. And as soon as we made it to the group stage of the Champions League, Neroni Lopes just vanished. He disappeared. So that just kind of almost seemed to be self-fulfilling prophecy that he's running unopposed. There's a group that's been campaigning against Vieira for a while, a relatively new group for the last few years. And they kind of said, well, we can't just have someone run unopposed. Let's get a candidate up there. And that's where Benitez came from, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of these things where I do agree. You don't want him running unopposed. Everyone had an inclination that Rui Costa's going to run. His administration, and I'll say this much, and we'll maybe touch on this topic first. One thing that did disappoint me on both candidates was we are a club that's developed a women's team. We have a lot of women's sports. It's a demographic that is growing within the sport itself and should be growing. And you're seeing more women be involved, which is great. And you'd think that the administration of Rui Costa or Benitez would have some females somewhere in a level of management somewhere. And they actually each released their pyramids. We have their president, the vice presidents, their chairmen, the directors, like this whole web of people. And I got to say, I saw someone over a week ago. She was complaining about it. And I really agreed with her.
I saw that tweet too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agreed with her because I was like, I got a wife that's just a rabbit of a fan as I am.
Sure.
I got a daughter that loves, she's little. She gets excited when daddy gets excited about Benfica, just like my son does. And this is something I thought was, if you're running against the current administration and you want to try to present something different, there was an opening for Benitez, and he did not take that opening at all. But yeah, what do you think of that component, the lack of representation, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, I want to start out by saying Benitez did a noble thing in running. I don't think he truly ever thought he was going to win this. I think he knew, like we said, that this couldn't be an unopposed election. And there was literally no one, and he stepped forward, put himself out there, took the ridicule, took it on the chin for the sake of the process, so that the right process was carried out. He did say in his interview on Benfica Independent that he had invited 3 different women to join his list, and they, for various reasons, could not accept the position. Whether that's true or not, it's another, that could have been a quick cover to cover his bases. But yeah, it is very disappointed. It's interesting because in my work, I have 2 jobs. One is 100% male, and in the other, I am like the only male in the company. So I've seen what happens when it's too much of the same. So
Yeah.
whether it's all male or all female, there are problems that come from that. And I think the club would really be benefited with a female voice and a female perspective from an administrative stance. I think they took a huge step last year in appointing a female head coach, a female manager to the Benfica women's team. The first two were men, and we've seen the team play so much better since she took over. For various reasons. And it's even a good example where she has male assistant coaches underneath her. She is in charge of them. She is their boss, their superior. And like you said, the women's team is blowing up. That's one of my favorite parts of this club is the women's team. I follow it. I don't think I've missed a game in a year now of the women's team, just like the men. And they're making the club so proud. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. It's disappointing that the female vote is as low as it was, the turnout. But you can see, putting a female on one of these slates would have changed that I think dramatically. Plus, I think the club needs to, and this is across all sports, not just in football, they need to really have the girls' sports, the female sports, really all the way down to the youngest age groups, because then you have a base that is going to grow up and become saucy-ish. They're going to grow up. They're going to vote because they're in the club from the day they're 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. They're playing football. They're playing roller hockey. They're doing gymnastics. They're doing swimming, water polo, whatever sport they're practicing at the club. They're a member of that club, and they grow up in the club. There's a very good likelihood they're going to grow up to vote in these elections, maybe even run, maybe even get on some of these lists. Or be on the Assemblea de Mesa, be on one of the other committees.
Yeah,
I
I know the Casa Benfica for the last few years in Toronto was there was an individual that ran, and then his daughter took over, and she had done a great job at running it through a very difficult time. But at the end of the day, it is a newer avenue. Like the women's team just started, right? I see a comment here. Mary Chloe, like the Canadian
very popular.
Very popular. I think the women's sports, I see this comment from SLB. I think there is it's a double-edged sword. They create the event, they got to go. You got to support the team, and if you don't support the team, it can't exist. I don't believe in ultimate charity. I believe in the idea. Okay, you got to create the opportunity, create the environment, give it the opportunity to survive. So I look at we have a broadcasting company that has the rights to the Champions League and Europa League and everything is sorted in Canada here, and they do a lot internationally. But they also got the right to the Women's Champions League, and because they know the viewers are a little lower, they actually broadcast all their games free to air on YouTube for the Champions League.
Yeah, the zone. Yep.
The zone, yeah. And so they're getting
same down here.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool, and the views are getting higher and higher. And I think it's one of those things where there's opportunity. I can go on about this Joker, to be honest, for quite a bit, because I think she's the exact opposite of what the women's sports need. Because I think
I agree. Yeah,
she actually does more harm than good, because the way she
certainly does more harm.
Yeah. But pretty much there is a growing sense that there should be some more representation, and I think the women's involvement in various sports and various modalidades at various levels at the club keep getting larger. So I would like sooner or later to see some of that growth, and it does take time. But so this was actually the breakdown from the election. So mostly men that came out and voted, but you had almost 6,000 women, just shy of that of the 40,000 votes. So a little representation can go a very long way. But yeah, let's get into the actual election itself. So actually, before I do that, I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds and go on to the fact that before the election, and I'm going to step you through my thought of what happened to me and why I voted who I voted for. Busy week. I didn't get to watch the debate, so I watched the debate this morning. So I want to watch this debate because as a socio, as someone that was very upset with Lucio Vieta and the lack of transparency and how poorly things were done, I want to change. I want severe change, burn the house to the ground if needed. Like, this is not how you're supposed to run a team. And at the end, Rui Costa did listen to fans being disgruntled, pointed debates, did a lot of work to do it, right? And he's made a sincere effort. And so it'd completely be hypocrisy on my part to say I didn't watch the debate. So I demanded this, so did many other fans. And so many fans did watch the debates. They did take a look at kind of how they did. And I'm going to actually, as I'm talking, try to bring up the some details on him. But Mike, you got a chance to watch him yourself. So
Yeah.
what were your initial thoughts on the debates there?
Well, my first thought was I thought that Benitez had good ideas that he could not effectively communicate.
Yeah.
I think I felt like I knew what he was trying to say, because a lot of the things he said, I've said in the past. Something like how the women's team should be included in the side. I said that about a year ago when we covered the last election. That was something I wanted to see from whoever won that election. He said things like the team needs an identity and needs a philosophy that the coach must work within. I said something along those lines also, and when he tried to say that, because of his lack of conviction, not lack of conviction, but he didn't communicate it effectively, he used the term in Portuguese, perfil de jogo, talking about the gameplay, the style. And Rui Costa, being quick, said, "Oh, so you want to be the manager as well?" And he said, "Well, oh, no," and that killed his argument right there. And then, as he would say, a few times he'd say, "I know what you're trying to say, but you're not saying it. And you're using bad examples." And I think that obviously Rui Costa was more prepared. I also think people really overvalue the optics and the aesthetics of a debate. They're more concerned with the fact that Benitez is going through papers than what he's saying. The content of what he's trying to say, they're not listening to, because he's got a piece of paper and he can't find the one he wants to read, which isn't a good look. I understand, but these are not professional politicians. These are people trying to run a football club. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Rui Costa was prepped for this much better, obviously.
Yeah. And
And it showed.
I'll say one thing on this one. It's a fact that, I don't think Benitez was ever. I didn't know much about him. Like, he's an individual that's been around. He's been around the club, but he's not
Right.
like a public figure. Rui Costa has been presented
Yeah.
amongst thousands, tens of thousands of people. He was in the Euros in 2004. He is used to doing press conferences. Like, he is in his element. So you had one man that's practiced. He knows what he wants. He's got a mission. He wants to be president of Benfica. He wants to represent this club. And you had another man that wants to do the same thing. He wants to be president of Benfica. But I wouldn't be shocked if he was obviously overwhelmed, nervous, things of sort. But the situation also is, if you look at the debate, it was just under 40,000 people watched the replay on YouTube. And it was also broadcast live. And it's kind of interesting that it almost coincides with the number of votes that came out. So clearly it is something that the fans, it isn't something that they ask for and then use. Like, the people that care about the club and have the capacity to vote, most of them participated in it. And I will say, like, going into this, and I was talking to Cristiano on our show about a week ago from the Benfica podcast, and we ended up touching on this topic. And my mindset before the debate was, you know what? I don't like all the stuff that happened. I didn't enjoy it. I know Rui Costa likely is going to win, but I'm likely just going to do a protest vote and vote for the other guy, because I don't like what happened. I'm just a little upset.
Sure.
But I will say this much. I voted for Rui Costa. I said it earlier today, and the reason I voted for Rui Costa is because I watched this debate, something I asked for. I saw a well put together individual that we do all admire, which is Rui Costa. I saw an individual that was a little bit nervous, and I'm visualizing, who do I want to see at a press conference representing Benfica at the Champions League, at a board meeting somewhere in the world, when Benfica come to North America or travel, and you see the managers and presidents of the clubs commingling. You know that Rui Costa is going to present way better. He's going to represent us a million times better. So that was like the first knock right there. I kind of saw, all right, man, this Benitez guy might not be as good. But then as the topics rolled over, and I'll kind of just maybe point out on three, was, one area where he was kind of trying to come up with ideas. And one idea was about parking lot and using the Stade Lush parking lot because people use the metro.
That one killed me.
Yeah. And it's like, maybe they can make a few dollars. And I started kind of thinking, like, what is this guy talking about? I'm like, what, Benfica's going to make a couple grand a year, a few grand a year running a parking lot? I'm like, this is a multi-million-dollar operation. Like, you're not going to move the needle. If anything, by the time you set up the apparatus to run that, you're barely going to break even. It's a waste of time. And when he was asked about the SAD, he had less comments on it. He was kind of struggling with the topic on the SAD and people here to point things of sort. I'm like, that is what pays the bills. That's the football club. That is a team that runs. That is the the apparatus that is Benfica. That's the Rafas of the world. That's the Pizzies of the world. That's the Evertons, the Yamachuks, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, right.
That's what we cheer for week in and week out. And if you have spent more time planning about a parking lot than you have about the SAD, I don't know if you have the right qualifications for this job, right?
Yeah.
And I felt bad because maybe it was just the fact that maybe he did have better ideas, but maybe he was caught up in the moments. There was that. And what was the other one was on it'll come to me. So you
the
kind
João
of
Felix comment really
the João Felix, yes,
made him
that
look
one.
bad.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's it. That's the one where it was very. It was funny. I almost felt bad for Benitez, but it was good on Rui Costa where Benitez was trying to point out the club hasn't done very good with some of their transfer policy, and there's been players that have been let go, and it doesn't seem like they were sold because it was the right thing for the club, and that maybe they weren't even players that were meant for the club. And he was kind of going down the path of some of these guys we've seen that are questionable signings, and then to explain or provide a context to it, he started talking about João Felix. And saying, yeah, like João Felix, they're trying to sell
worst
blah, blah, blah.
possible example.
And that's exactly what Rui Costa said. He's like, and Rui Costa even said, I understand where you're trying to go with your point. Like if I'm translating Portuguese, I understand where you're trying to get at. That is the worst example. There's other players he could have picked. Like not that it was almost like Rui Costa was defending Benitez to an extent. And he's like,
yeah,
this is the best example. You want to sell a guy for $120 million.
That's when you have to let it go. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I see there in the chat, Cynthia gave a great example. She said RDT should have been the one he went and mentioned.
Yeah, it's just
or Darwin now. Now we're hearing about Darwin. He scores 2 goals against Barcelona, and suddenly the whole world wants to purchase the player.
Yeah, and it's funny. So at the end of the day, it's I don't know. I just found the Mega Bar is a great hilarious place. But yeah, I don't know. I felt at that point I went in with the mindset saying, based on what happened recently, I'm going to just do a protest vote to, you know what, Rui Costa earned my vote. And I this morning when I was talking to my wife and we were talking about who we're going to vote for, I was like, no, fuck it. This is my command. I'm going to vote for this guy. He deserves a chance. He's did a lot for this club. He sacrificed a lot for this club. There are individuals around him I don't agree with, but there's some changes with some of the people that are coming on. And and they had actually a very good friendly debate, and a topic they talked about was term limits. I don't know if you want to touch on that real quickly.
Yeah, I mean that came up real early in the debate. And I think Benitez brought it up first, and he said, and this is one place where we agree, and we both agree on term limits. He goes, I think he's the one that said, my opponent thinks it should be a 3-term limit equaling 12 years, and I think it should be a 2-term limit equaling 8 years. That's really, splitting hairs at that point. For me, that made me feel better about this election immediately, because regardless of who won, at least if they do what they say they're going to do, they're going to implement something to do with term limits, because we can't afford to have another near 20-year president, because he puts too many yes people around him. He or she put too many yes people around them. And eventually they can do whatever they want because there's nobody there to contest them. And I also think Rui Costa supports 3 terms because he's about 50 years old. 12 years, that's probably where he wants to go off into the sunset and live his best life, and see out the rest of his days at that point. It'd be a convenient number for him. But yeah, I think term limits is got to be at the forefront of the first things they accomplish. It should be on the table, I think, at the next assembly.
Yeah, and it's something, and going back to the idea of this conversation we're having, there's some disagreements, but there is in general relatively agreement on the direction. It wasn't Rui Costa stands for one thing, Benitez stands for something else. Rui Costa is standing for a lot of change. He's already showing some change. He's doing things that Luis Vieira today showed up, like the idiot showed up in an interview. And here's Luis Vieira saying how he dislikes the democracy. Like he hates this. He despises everything that's going on right now about debates and conversations. And I'm like, no, because what just happened is Rui Costa won by a massive margin. There should be no questions about anything, and everyone should coalesce, support the club, cheer Benfica on, support the apparatus. And if he doesn't deliver, then let's discuss in 4 years. But at the same time, this is a united kind of front, right? And when you kind of refuse to debate, you refuse to allow transparency, you refuse discussion, you kind of start planting the seeds of discontent and arguments. And I think also the term limits. It's not that you're done being affiliated with Benfica, but if
Exactly.
he could be a director, he could still be involved with the club, but it's just it kind of helps. It's not president for life. You look at the Pinto Costa situation, and that's what
That's exactly what I want to
yeah.
avoid.
Yeah,
You know,
he's like senile and his Porto slowly deteriorating, but he's got an iron grip, and that's what Vieira wanted. But
right?
because he got caught up in his criminal activity, he eventually got
Exactly.
dismantled, right?
Right.
Um, so at least now, if you know there's a limit and you have an apparatus of vice presidents, things of sort, you can start grooming. Okay, in your second term, you can start going. Okay, here's the 2 or 3 guys that can take me
Hmm.
on and overtake me. Instead of looking at the people beneath you as opponents,
Exactly.
you're looking at which ones are your successor, and you help
Right.
the system grow and advance and move on, right? Because that's what Benfica always was. Benfica only ever
Yeah.
had a president for 1 to 2 terms. That's always been the
Hmm.
history of Benfica. Vieira was the one exception that kind of tried doing the dictator approach, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And and if you go back in history, it used to be a 1 year term at one time,
Yeah.
and they would take 1 year and they were out.
Yeah,
I
they kind of
mean,
do it and rotate, and that's what a lot of like Portuguese clubs, a lot of affiliations would do. And you look at all the times we had to, even like in the late '80s, going to Champions
mhm,
League final. That's what the club was doing, right?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, Rui Costa did amazing in my opinion. He's earned this win beyond beyond belief, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And it's quite neat. And I think one really, I don't want to say damning comment, but a comment that Benitez did. He knew the writing was on the wall, but today in one of the flash interviews, as they kind of went on and off the camera, like kind of asked, "Oh, what do you think now? What's going to happen?" Or something. To me, I forget what the question was, but basically the answer to him that he made was, I present good ideas, and Rui
Hmm.
Costa presented more ideas than I even did, right? So it's a
Yeah.
case where the ideas that Benitez had were not bad ideas, and Rui Costa pretty much is on the same page. Yeah, that's good, I like that. And then what about this, this, and this? Like Rui Costa has like he's several steps ahead of him, right? So yeah, it's good, man. I'm
Yeah, he
happy.
was well, like we said, he was well prepared. I'm sure it was Vieira's old, aides that were prepping him for this. He's got a lot of contacts, but he knew what he was there to do. And I think it's a victory just that there was a debate, because a year ago, that's all we asked for and we
Yes.
didn't get it. That's all we asked for and we didn't get it. This year, it was given to us. There was a debate. It was on BTV. The opposition was given time on BTV to speak freely in an interview. I mean, the Benfica Journal, the newspaper covered it, gave them print space. That's what needs. We took big steps going forward, even if the president remains the same today. Steps going forward, I think a lot of progress was made. Maybe not a lot, but small steps were made. In the next cycle, we take a few more steps. And I think at the very least, having this debate and having Rui Costa have to state his goals and his objectives and his stances gives all of us something to keep him accountable for.
Yeah. I just want to address one comment. So yes, like
Sure.
companies don't have CEO limits. The big difference is
They're private.
they're private entities, not publicly owned. The second one, a lot of times, like if I look at Elon Musk with Tesla, he pretty much owns the majority of Tesla. He is Tesla. Most established corporations, let's say, if you look at Benfica as a
Hmm.
corporation, you put them in that light, which they are to an extent. If you're an established, not a startup, you've been around for many, like
Hmm.
almost 100+ years. Um, you have CEOs for a few years and you rotate. That is
Yeah.
actually that's the industry norm. You look at all the major banks in Canada, all the major banks in the US. You look at the
Hmm.
major. Look at Microsoft.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is the founder. Bill Gates then stopped being the CEO well over a decade plus ago, and they've had new people that kind of turn around. And Microsoft has had ups and
Mhm.
downs, and they now are doing extremely well actually as a company.
Steve
Um,
Jobs at Apple was kicked off his own
yeah,
board at one time and had to come
yeah.
back later.
Yeah, and it happens. Now, there's a difference between founders. I think people conflict
Hmm.
long-term CEOs, like what Elon Musk thinks, where they're
Hmm.
founders of a company. It's their business and their puppy they grow. That's very different because they own it. It's their entity.
Yeah.
Versus once it's an independent running structure,
Yeah.
very rarely do you actually have that long duration. You tend to have
Mhm.
turnover because you need to avoid groupthink because you get the yes man
Yeah.
mentality. Every company that kind of it's very rare that you see a company that has the same long CEO without a founder that doesn't run into heartache. Because eventually you get all these people around them that just got to say yes to get their bonuses. And that's what was kind of happening around them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, But yeah, it's not that you're wrong. It's just more of like you got to have some semblance. It almost put a roadblock from another VA showing up again.
It's not apples to apples.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of differences there. I did make a note.
Yep.
Let me see here. And I wanted to talk about Benitez tried to say something I found kind of naive. And I think it's in good intention. I think everything he said was in good intentions. And he said that he wanted to remove the intermediaries in negotiating player transactions. And it made Rui Costa actually laugh.
Yeah.
And it's funny. And, you know, I've read some of the commentaries, and people that don't operate inside football think it's easy to just remove these intermediaries, these super agents that broker these deals. And I spent time here in the United States, you know, as a coach, an assistant coach in the USL. Okay, we're talking the fourth tier of North American football, and we couldn't go get a player outside of our zone, our area, without and we did one time make the mistake of going through an intermediary. We brought 3 players from Brazil, okay, and they were great kids, but not what was advertised. But we couldn't even go get players without involving an intermediary that represents not just those players, but represents their agent as well. And that would sit there, and all of a sudden, you know, we can make this happen, but that price has got to get a little bit more. And we know about the commissions.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time. It is the clubs that try to break away from these intermediaries. And I think we've seen our rivals try to get away from this and then come running back to George Mendes for a reason, because all of a sudden it becomes impossible to sign players and sell players. How many players has Porto had to let leave? They let their contract run out because they couldn't find a buyer. So, and I think that's why Rui Costa started laughing. Like, yeah, that sounds great and all, but how are we going to build a team without using the people that are there to make that happen?
Yeah, this is the naivety that does hit sometimes. Some of the, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and I know you're doing the same thing. You're not trying to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of people that don't understand. But
they don't.
The prime example is Bruno Carvalho. You mentioned our crosstown rivals. You know, it's very popular to say get rid of George Mendes, get rid of these agents. These agents are leeches. They're taking money from the club. Yeah. If you think of all the millions they take, we could have had more players, better players. We could have gave more money to the players to get them to stay. It all sounds great on paper. In reality, what it caused was so much infighting within the squad, within the club itself. You had players leaving for free. They pretty much, once that event happened, they're waiting for the opportunity to blow away and kind of leave Sporting destitute, because they pretty much went in and in some cases convinced players, because again, they're players, man. Some of these guys are like 22 years of age,
right?
And they were able to coerce some of these kids to sign contracts to get their agents out of it that really weren't in their best interest,
right?
And the point of an agent, and for all the nasty things we can say about George Mendes, but the honest truth about any agency in general in life, whether you're talking about a lawyer or things of sort, they are there to represent you, your best interests. You're paying money to that individual. So George Mendes is making money.
Right.
And so it's the players are paying for him. He's their representative. Now, how he gets paid is because he'll convince the clubs to pay the player more. Therefore, he makes more money.
So he can take more.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, that's kind of why players love signing up George Mendes. This is why he's a super agent, is this guy's good. And if I tell George Mendes, hey, here, I want to one day play in England. He goes, okay, cool. Go here. You're going to go to Benfica. You're going to go to Porto. He'll kind of help you open the door introduction. Now, you still got to do your job. You got to work hard as a player. You got to do your bits. If you do your part, he does your part, you have a good career. And at the end of the day, once your career is tailing off, you look at a knee, I believe he has George Mendes. He's like, all right, I'll get you a contact in MLS. Let's get you set up.
Mendes is the best. Let's be out there. He's the best agent there is. I mean, look at the contracts he's landed for his clients.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I think there is a fair argument, huge fair argument on oversight regulations, on conflicts of interest, and how these things maybe should be operated, right? Maybe they should kind of say, here's the cap on how much these guys should take. I don't know, something kind of like, there's no real, like, it's very hard for, like, in real estate agents, common to see a 2.5%, 5% fee.
Sure.
There's like a common like denominator. What the sport made for the average player, there's a common denominator, but it can really get out of whack very quickly. And there's a lot of agents that can put their self-interest above their players. So I think there should be some, these guys only have a 10-year window if they're lucky. Maybe some liability that if an agent does do something that's nefarious, that's not in the best interest of a player. Like Kyle Lucas going from to Benfica back to the Middle East.
Right.
Was that really, now Kyle Lucas was not a top guy, but that was
Mhm.
basically a shady transaction to
Sure.
funnel money and launder
John
money.
Cadiz.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of stuff is frowned upon. That's where people get upset, and I think there should be more oversight there. But yeah, but back to the election itself, I'll share the screen here one more time. The Benfica website has been on point. They did it last time actually quite well, and they were even better this time around, I felt, in terms of just tracking results. So yeah, 40,000 is the official, just over 40,000 the official vote. It's kind of neat. You kind of break down on their website, how many from the Açores, Madeira, that voted, Braga, things of sort. I found it quite funny when you go through the various ones. Lieda had a very good amount, same with Coimbra. Obviously, this is Stade Luge. So of the 40,000, a big percentage, less than half, but did actually just go directly on site. The images of the lineups, obviously Seixal, Lisboa, a lot more people. Then you kind of go into this like central region, then Algarve. Internet, which I would kind of say us North Americans and us in different parts of the world, Luis in England,
Switzerland, England.
Yeah. So if you actually look at the ranking, it's people at the Luge first, people outside of Portugal second, and then you kind of get into like this regional area where around Lisboa, around Seixal, and then the Coimbras, things of sort. So it's quite interesting to kind of see the breakup between it. So it's quite a bit you can kind of look here. They had the gender thing, which was kind of neat to see. They had age demographics,
age groups. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, to kind of see this kind of breakdown here where it looks like the core support of this club is younger. Like people always go, oh, it's all the old dinosaurs that vote.
Not for long. It's we're encroaching because you can see the 35 to 44 is the largest number there, and then 45 to 54 right behind it, and then you have your 65 plus.
Yeah, I got one question here on the Azores. I don't know. I wasn't looking at the chat for a second, so I'll go
back.
Was
just like,
there it is.
It was almost 600. Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, it's now it could be a case that someone in Azores, like if you're on, I don't know where the I think some Miguel might have had a location to find. I'm not too sure, but if you're in Terceira or if you're in Peak or someplace like that, it could be you go on the internet. You fall into the bucket of the internet people because I'm not going to catch a boat or a flight to go to
or a plane to go vote. Right.
Exactly. So that's kind of hopefully I answered that one there, but yeah, the whole island voted. Hilarious. So
that actually is a lot of people for these.
Which is, and so speaking of a lot of people, funny little trivia thing, which I think you know already and you've seen. But you know what? Maybe we'll chat a little bit. I'll see if the audience knows. Do you know where this where this vote count ranks for Benfica, and B, where it ranks ever in the history of vote counts for any club of the sort?
I do. Do you want to see if someone answers it before?
I'll let someone in the chat. If someone wants to throw it up if they know it, because I got the information. I think me and Mike were talking earlier, so I got a feeling he knows also. But it's quite neat because there's a lot of clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Boca, things of the sort that are out there that
that are large.
And there's a comment. So I guess maybe what I'll bring to I'll chat real quickly on this and we'll kind of spill it out because Ross brought up Newcastle earlier. And that leads to John Texter, which is the individual that was interested in buying into Benfica and being involved in Benfica and partnering with us and things of sort, right? Look at this. Yeah, here we go. I got a winner in the chat. It's this one here. But yeah, Barca's the biggest one ever at I think it was around 50,000 people voted.
Yeah. And look at why.
At Barca. And Barca's got a serious circus.
Yeah.
So they got everything that's going on. Barcelona got them 50,000. Benfica got 40, just over 40,000.
Yeah.
Boca's number 3 as the third highest.
Yep.
This is the highest ever for Benfica. Last election was the biggest, and this even got bigger. I like this engagement. Of the total registered voters, because there's over 200,000 socios, but you have to take into account 2 categories. One is I'm a socio, my wife's a socio, but so are my kids. They don't count.
Right.
So only 50% of us in my household can vote. So children can't vote. And then the other people that are not allowed to vote is you don't pay your contas, you don't vote. So, you got a lot of people that sign up for socios and maybe they don't ever, they don't ever, let's say they sign up for every 3-4 years, they update the numbers. So the reason the numbers shift is, maybe someone passed away, which is unfortunate, but the reality is maybe someone got a socio as a gift and they never kept up their contas and then eventually they fall off the system, right? So of the 200 and some odd thousand socios, only 111, I think it was, give or take, are registered to vote. So it is under 40% turnout, right? So I would say it's cool that we got the second highest ever in the history of the
Yeah.
sport. I think it's great. I like the fact that we went from a certain amount of percentage of people voting the 2 elections ago to even higher last election to higher this election. I really want that to kind of go on and increase. Um,
Yeah, I
we were,
saw that comment. That's
yeah,
a good one.
yeah. We've had the Guinness book at one point, and Bayern beat us and Barca beat us, but it is like the fact is we're in the running up there, which is nice. But voter engagement, anything in society is a good thing. The more people that take an interest, it solidifies that the team is truly supported. And then I'm going to kind of pick on people who voted for Benitez, not in a negative way, because I was almost about to throw a protest vote that way. But it's the case that if he gets, let's say if right now they're saying 85% is what he won by, but let's just say take the 80% number. If Benitez got 20% of the vote and only 40,000 people voted, of the registered voters, only 8% of the registered voters voted for Benitez. So I think people that maybe don't like the result, they also need to kind of cool off a little bit to kind of say, okay, this is the majority spoke. And I think if you don't like the result, go out there and convince more people to vote.
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
the only, and the more people that vote, the more legitimate the administration is, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bigger that losing total is, the more pressure it is on the winner also, because he knows that, he's got X amount of space, wiggle room before they start encroaching on his support, and it gets closer and closer.
Yeah. So back to the Newcastle thing, because Ross brought up a really cool thing. So John made this comment with this new Newcastle acquisition. They're the next big club bought by the most expensive entity out there, the Saudi Arabian wealth fund, and their people there. So the debate's going to rage. Are they going to be like the next Man City, PSG, or are they just like an investment that they want to hold and not actually invest in? But usually these guys don't screw around. They buy it to actually do something with it. Newcastle's a really cool supporter and fan base that I do feel bad for their fan base because they've had a shitty run of ownership for a long time. But the thing that stinks, and we've had Arsenal people here before on the show, and it's just this idea of you having an owner, like you support someone else's property.
Yeah,
you're there to watch them run their toy, and if you don't like it, you can protest, but really, who cares? And as much as they protested about the Newcastle owner, the guy sold it for a good amount of money.
Yeah,
that was his property. He owned it, and this entity came out from Saudi Arabia and basically said, "Here's a fat check." And he said, "You know what? That's a lot of money for my toy. Feel free to take it. I'm happy." Yeah. So it ain't like the owner got chased out. Like, I know they did protest, but the reality is the guy made a ton of money off this transaction. And so what John Texter was trying to get at is like, it's nice. He was kind of like, people were talking about the whole ownership structure in England and with some clubs like PSG and then clubs that have poor owners. And he kind of tried highlighting Benfica and say, well, Benfica this weekend has got an election coming up, and it's kind of neat if you don't like the Super League, if you don't like these big owners, there's other options out there, these other entities, and there's other clubs that do it. And he was, instead of referencing Bayern Munich or Barcelona, he referenced us. And I get people have little hesitations about him, but he's trying to talk about Benfica in a positive way. So my only ask is maybe don't rip him a new one if he's trying to argue with people online saying why Benfica is better than some of these other entities, and people are debating saying, I don't know about this Benfica. He's like, no, trust me, Benfica's good. And then you got Benfica saying, fuck you, John, we don't like you, and they're like stabbing him.
Exactly.
I'm like, rip at him for other things. You shouldn't rip at him when he's trying to defend the club. Like, let the guy defend the club.
Yeah, it's not a good reflection on our fan base, and there's just such a fear, I guess, of people with money among, someone tweeted or commented on that tweet, and it was an American Benfiquista. His name was Tiago, and he said, us American Benfica fans understand what you're trying to do, and it's a good thing. And I followed it up saying, our friends across the sea just see money, and I honestly, and I think I said this to you in a private message, I said, I don't think they're either uneducated or they're ignorant in regards to how money actually works and how revenue is generated and how you build a club to be competitive with, they want to be in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's things people demand from our club. You can't build a club like that off of our yearly dues. It's impossible. That's not anywhere
It's
near enough money.
yeah, it's a combination of competent administration, building a competent team on the pitch, competent product, to be competitive, and then sell smart, buy smart. And this is where the Rui Costa, the excitement around him is that
Mhm.
before, if things on the pitch were struggling, and you saw Vieta playing Candy Crush in the stands, and then he talks about fixing things. You don't know
Mhm.
if he's just being told by people or agents or
Right.
what. Like, he was pretty much just listening. Now, when you got Rui Costa in the president's box, watching Benfica smash Barcelona 3-0, which is such a cool thing to do,
Mhm.
but seeing the level of excitement he has, and I'm not saying Luis Vieta wouldn't have had that excitement, but the difference is, if when I watch Benfica versus Tondela, and they put, all of a sudden there's like what was a game a while back? It was a close result. Like we kind of won it at the end. Here, I'll find
It
out what
was
it was.
Tundela.
It was Tondela. Okay,
Gilbert scored at the end.
yeah, and all of a sudden, like, it's technically a mid-table club. You'd see, sometimes Vieta wouldn't show up to the games, and if he showed up, he's on his phone. You saw Rui Costa at one point near the end. He's like pray. He's like has his hands crossed. And he's like praying for us to score a goal. Like, he's a fan, man. He played the sport. He knows it, and so I think that is going to make. I truly hope in the next 4 years. I think there's some really good parts that are in this club that are running real well, and I really think, at the end of the day, that having a president that also understands what's going on the pitch is going to make a huge difference. I got a good question here about um
Yeah.
yeah. So here's the helping factor. Okay, so this Hey de Franche, this individual that owns like 5% of the float of the SAD, not Benfica, but the
That's
SAD.
right. Exactly. That needs to be
Yeah,
distinguished. I don't
yeah.
know that everyone fully understands the difference.
The difference between the two. So you have the club owns the majority of Benfica SAD, and the SAD is what owns the Benfica football club, right? The players, not the stadium, but the players
Right.
and the rights and things of sort. Um, so at the end of the day, there's an old individual that's probably going to croak anyways because he's super ancient.
Mhm.
He's in the process of selling his shares to John Texer at the moment. I don't know where that transaction lies.
25%. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the full? Yeah, it is. Is it 20? It is 25%. Yes,
That's what they
25%.
said
Yeah,
of
that's what he
an
owns.
hour
Yeah.
ago or so.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was, yeah, sorry. The 5% was, I think, what Vieta had with someone else. And then this
Mhm.
guy had 20 and they merged it. And this is what this guy's going to buy.
Mhm.
Anyways, long story short, um, when it's all said and done, if that transaction goes through, and it seems like it will go through, it doesn't change anything at the club. We still have, if you go in the majority of it, this guy didn't get any extra ownership or anything of sort. Nothing's different. The only difference really is that he now owns something that he paid money for, and the only
Mhm.
way he ever benefits, I actually went back and forth him a tiny bit on Twitter, because the thing I do like is
Yeah.
interacting with fans.
He is
Eh,
interactive. Yeah.
yeah, he's talking with people. And I made a wisecrack to someone, because someone was questioning him, and so in a response, I said, "Well, at the end of the day, if he lists this on the New York Stock Exchange and he wants to promote Benfica in North America, and the guy owns Fubu, or had not that he
Yeah.
owns
Fubo.
anymore, but he ran
He
with
he ran
Fubu, and
it. Yeah.
yeah, and he has contacts in media. If he goes, okay, if Benfica can help its brand improve some of its image, I got the contacts in the U.S. I'm going to own this. Let me do my bit here in North America, and let me get, Benfica's recognition, brand name. Let's kind of, let's get some people buying more
Mhm.
jerseys, buying more tickets. Let's get some more Americans. I know Americans and British people, and I've met Canadians, and I've met so many people that are not Portuguese at all, that are associates of this club.
Yeah.
And you can grow this just like Barcelona and Bayern Munich. You can
Exactly.
make this club bigger and bigger and bigger. He sees the opportunity where he sees this. This is a major European team with a rich history that is undervalued. So as an investor, he sees an undervalued asset that he can buy, and
Right.
with a little elbow grease, the value of the club is going to go up. And if he wants, he can sell. Now, he said he's not, because I made a comment saying, "Oh, this is an easy short-term flip,"
Right.
because Benfica is undervalued. And if you market it correctly, we are bigger than what it seems to a lot of North
Of
Americans
course. Yeah.
because of lack of marketing, right?
Right.
So if he can do that, what happens is he's making money technically from a marketing standpoint, but Benfica also, they own their shares, their money goes up. The
Mhm.
other aspect that he talked about was figuring out the lending apparatus, where Benfica is lending from different entities, paying 3%, 4%, 5%,
Yeah.
6%, 7%. With the right support, you can get one loan deal, pay less in rates, saves interest on their debt. Benfica makes more money in a sense, sells
Mhm.
more jerseys, gets more brand awareness. The streaming networks. One of the reasons, and this is not me being cold hearted, but one of the reasons Benfica wasn't invited to the Super League is because of brand awareness. Now, if you get your brand awareness up, there's a reason why they want you there. Spurs is a joke of a club, but they have brand awareness.
Yeah.
Atletico Madrid, Benfica is bigger than Atletico Madrid. We got more fans, more success, more legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Their branding in the last 10 years have been better. That's why they want Atletico Madrid part of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not advocating for the Super League. I'm just saying we are a top club that is being marketed poorly.
Yeah, agreed.
And you can sell more jerseys. And also, if you're a player, you can that appeal happens more, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what John, sorry to go back to, because he's saying he can't change anything in the club. Well, if you're a 25% owner, you have a seat at the board of directors.
Right.
You're
in the SAD meetings with
yeah. So you think of the SAD right now has the Rei de Franche, a guy that runs chicken shops in Portugal. That's like age 90. That's senile, drooling.
Yeah.
You're going to remove him off the board of directors and put a sophisticated business person on the board of directors.
Right.
That is and Rui Costa is going to hear that voice. Doesn't mean he has to listen to that voice.
Right.
But you're bringing in people to the table. And this guy has a vested interest, because if Benfica's value goes up, he makes more money. So I'm not putting John down, but the reality is he's going to be richer if he's successful. So then Benfica can let it go. Okay, you want to be richer? You own the chicken man, his shares, his component. Then what's your idea to make the club richer? And Rui Costa can tell him to fly a kite and go, okay, this is an interesting idea. Okay, cool. But you're bringing someone to the table that might bring fresh ideas, diversity ideas. I think Benfica got caught up in the last while with groupthink and having very inward-looking people that are all kind of parroting the same thing. Having a few different ideas is good. And it's nice. It's nice to kind of have that, right? So I think that would be cool. And as selfishly, the streaming of Fubu or anything with streaming, because I can't get Benfica to save my life here. I basically pay money to a guy named Salah, which gets me a bootleg feed for the year, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I love this guy. He's done it for the last 3 years because I can't get Benfica TV properly here.
Right.
And
he brought it here in the United States where I am. I've been a subscriber since Fubo launched. I heard about it because I was looking for Benfica TV at that time, now BTV, and I found it. And I've said on my show before, full disclosure, I've actually purchased shares of Fubo, and I'm actually, a shareholder now in that company. And it is such a good service, first of all, and it makes Benfica visible. And if you, at the very beginning, when Fubo was just 8 maybe channels, BTV was one of them, right there next to Dortmund TV, next to BN Sport, and I think Gold TV was the other thing that was there at the time. So again, you talk about the brand awareness here in the United States. Streaming is the future. You look at the rights that streaming providers are paying. ESPN Plus just paid a fortune for La Liga. Here CBS's streaming platform, Paramount Plus, has the Champions League. They just got Serie A. They've just picked up the CONCACAF qualifiers. They've picked up the Brazilian League, the Argentine League. They are eating up. They're eating up rights fees. They're spending the money to put this content on their platforms, and they're getting subscriptions. So it's obviously working as all of these platforms continue to acquire rights.
And what that leads to is the shirt sponsors, because if you're on enough screens, they pay more for this. They pay more for, like, when you see the bancadas and you see the branders and advertisers there. There's a reason with the EPL, which is funny. When you watch the EPL and you see the little banners, they're all in Chinese. It's to the point where some company in Shanghai is saying, I'm going to give you a huge check, Arsenal, to put my little China. I don't even care about the English characters. And the check is bigger than what any English-speaking American corporation or
is going to give you,
So at the end of the day, it makes the club richer. If you think of Netflix, Disney Plus, and the streaming world and how it's consolidating, the sports world right now is going through this battle right now. Fubu is trying to cut their site. The Zone is the big one, I think, that's winning to a certain extent, but Fubu has a lot to offer. And then we got One Soccer, which is another one, which is doing some work in Europe, and they came to Canada. And they got, obviously, the Canadian Premier League, but they also have Ligue 1 and the French League, Liga MX, and they had some of the Asian leagues. And so everyone's trying to get a splice this. One thing the Portuguese League is going to do is reunite their rights. So all the rights will be, the BTV will exist.
The centralization,
but re-centralize it so they can kind of be on one of these platforms somewhere. Because then that'll allow me to pay for the service and then to make more money. And so it's good. Anyways, we got off the election topic a little bit there, but that's, why John could help. And I'm not supporting John per se. I'm just saying this. I'm trying to understand the why, right?
And I want that conversation to happen. That's my key. If it's not the right deal and it's not the right fit, then so be it. But listen, hear it out. And from my understanding, the statute, it has to be approved by the socios anyway, which is always going to be difficult. But at least hear him out on his offer and present it. And let's see if this is a good deal. Let's not just turn down potential good deals because we don't want outside investment or because we're a club of the people, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Which,
Well,
you know,
the way I see it is that these are shares not owned by the club. So if he owns
yeah,
these shares and he could do nothing with it, it's just someone different on the board of directors. They can ignore him. Like they don't have to
right,
listen to him. Like there's no
right,
entitlement or rights. We have the
right.
veto power as a club.
Mhm.
That's why I think when people get worked up about him, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. Where I'd get livid. And so what other Benfica, if all of a sudden I hear Benfica selling more ownership to him,
Yes, of course.
that's different. But that goes to the whole transparency, and that's what Rui Costa is doing different than Luis Vieira. He's talking more about transparency, more about debates, more about access, general assemblies, and term limits. That's the kind of stuff that you want to go towards, because if you don't do that, someone like a John could cause grief behind the scenes, right?
Of course.
So going back to the election bit, the only other neat bit of data I wanted to kind of share a little bit, going back to the website itself here, is some really cool stuff. Because again, going back to this site, they had the other one is the demographics. I think we were chatting about that before I went. The one point I wanted to make is this broad category of age 65 plus, 65 to age 90 is 7,000, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the biggest vote is actually in the mid 30s.
Yeah.
And you look at the other next vote there is 6,000, 7,000, but you're seeing the next generation coming in very strong.
Yeah.
They're turning out and voting. And the way the Benfica system works is if you've only been a socio for a year, you get a vote. After 5 years, you get 5 votes. After 10 years, you get 10 votes. So it has a escalating.
Yeah.
So there was always majority of people voting were age 65 plus. When you have this much diversity of people voting,
50 votes apiece.
Yeah. And now, like with all these people coming on and having longer tenure, these guys that are mid 30s and 40s, their votes are counting more. Like my vote next election will be 10. My wife will be 10. Like we're worth 20 votes.
Right.
So Rui Costa is smart enough, in my opinion, he talked a bit more to this demographic.
Yeah.
You know, before Luis Vieira's opinion was ignore what these people say. I got the seniors in the bag, and the seniors don't know the internet and they don't understand. I can just keep the seniors and I can keep being present. I think one thing he did very well in this campaign was talking about a lot of things people want to hear, focusing on it. And now he's got an opportunity. I really do think he has an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. And he still has the 65 plus vote anyway. They're still in Rui Costa's corner. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah. They just want stability.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, they just like to they just keep the thing running.
They want to keep it the same, yeah. Just don't go back to the 90s. That's their attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's now this is done. There's a certain level of relief I personally have where I'm looking at the fact that it's done. Election's good. We got a clear mandate. I really, really, really hope that people are united now, and they should be. I think there should be no excuse to be united. The club is running well. Things are going in the right direction. Our rivals are struggling a little bit. You know, we got to not sleep on them, keep the pressure going. And now just keep building and focus, man. I think now he's got a great opportunity. And if you don't like short-term what's happening, just give the man a chance, give him some time. And in 4 years, we can all bust his balls if he didn't deliver, right?
Right. And it's fine to keep the pressure, but be fair. If something's going well, acknowledge that it's well. And when something's wrong, yes, point out that it's wrong.
The chat. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I got caught up in the chat. You can get.
Yeah, I know. It can get
distracting. You can get BTV in Canada. You just can't get the Liga Dodge. And I think there's one way of getting it, but it's you have to backdoor all
the rights are owned somewhere else.
Yeah, so I think the Sport TV is a different rights. So I know you can get BTV in Canada. It's not in Canada. You just buy the Portuguese BTV and you stream it here. But it's the fact that it's so convoluted is that. But on Fubo, no, we can't buy it on Fubo. Fubo in Canada.
No, we have it on Fubo here in the United States, but not you don't up there.
Yeah, she's giving me crap for not reading the chat properly. But anyways, sorry, I cut you off. What were we going on about again? It's
the
club's heading in the right direction. It's kind of where we're
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, it's I think some people will be disgruntled. It's funny. There is a very vocal minority. I think some of these. And
it's an angry it's an angry vocal minority. They're personal. They're going personal with a lot of their comments.
and it got very personal in the sense of, so this is just to kind of add a bit more context. So this one group that put Benitez up, there's a few different groups out there. These are groups that were calling for more transparency and more clarity on what's going on at the club. And Vieta and the goons attacked these people. They attacked them
Right.
personally. There was one guy that was like, it was in some cases violent. It was very disrespectful. He didn't want to listen to fans. Rui Costa's taking a complete different approach. But there is, when you get people this livid, it's very hard to kind of
Right.
cool off. And I will say, like, some of these groups, I know people in these groups. I did give money towards those Rua LFE, Rua Vieta stickers and the campaign and the banners going across Portugal. I knew the organizers of that because the guy had to go and bugger off, and I'm glad that the campaign worked because it helped put pressure, especially with the legal case mounting and things of sort. The fans did the right thing there, but at the same time, what I'm noticing within these groups now that I see, it is mission accomplished. Vieta's out. The crook's gone. Is it perfect? No. Should we keep them accountable? Yes. Do we got to keep pushing General Assemblies? You got to keep them honest. I think that's our job as a fan base, as socios, to do that. At the same time, you got to recognize progress. You got to recognize things are going well. Ronnie Lopes had a good opportunity. He chose to go into the wilderness.
Yeah.
As soon as we made it to the group stage, he chose to step away. And I'm hearing this comment about like, oh, Benitez only had short notice to prepare. I'm like, yeah, but you knew there was an election coming up. So at the end of the day, you have to come clean. You have to be polished and keep him accountable. And if he's not accountable, we'll bust his chops in 4 years. But for now, you got to support the man, give the man a chance. And I fully agree with what Tom said. The Barca victory gave a huge bump because that was a massive record victory. And I think people see some optimism and light at the end of the tunnel. But the other part was also that everything Benitez was saying, Rui Costa was not disagreeing with. He's like, yeah, I agree with you. But did you think about A, B, C, D, and what about this option?
Right.
And so it's a case where I don't think there's no longer this butting of the heads, because it used to be, here's one group with ideas about good ideas for Benfica. Yeah. And he had Vieta going against transparency and what he ranted on today about being against all this.
Why was he given a platform to speak today? I don't understand. I mean, did anyone at BTV think anything good was going to come from putting him on the screen today? And he doesn't even, clearly he's not coherent, because that doesn't even help Rui Costa's case, going on TV and putting his support for him and pleading his innocence. If anything, you're hurting the guy you're supposedly supporting by attaching your name to him. That was ridiculous.
I think it's this awkwardness, and I'm going to defend Rui Costa to an extent where when Rui Costa was a player, Vieta was a president for already 5 years. Rui Costa came, he loves the club and came to play with us. Then he did what Luis Zone did, which is he retired and was around the bench and around the team in this lower capacity, but they gave him some kind of position within the club. And of course, he's an icon. And of course, Vieta leveraged him. And then after a few years, he gave him another middle management role. And then after a few years,
he slowly
and each election, what he would do is pretty much go, hey, Rui Costa, come here, buddy. And he's like, yeah, he's a young guy that is learning. Now, he's older today, but he was still a young guy over a decade ago, right?
Yeah, he was 36 when he took this position, I believe.
Yeah. And so last election that just happened over a year ago is when Rui Costa was made VP. He was a director. He was involved in some stuff. I think there's a lot of shadiness, but at the end of the day, I really doubt that Rui Costa was aware of a lot of it. He was aware of probably some, and I think he probably knows some people shouldn't be there. But at the same time, he was able to move up because of Vieta. So there is a conflict. I can see that in a sense that, this man helped me. And that's why I could see in interviews that he struggles with the situation. Now, at the end of the day, as long as Vieta stays away from the club and Rui Costa doesn't welcome him back,
exactly,
perfect. If he brings Vieta back, the socios will probably they'll turn. They'll call General Assembly and call an election, and then Rui Costa will get crucified.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I think right now Rui Costa he's sharp, he's smart, he's played it well. He hasn't burnt the old bridges, and he's connected a bridge to the new generation and kind of where the direction the club needs to go. And he's shed a couple of guys from Vieta's administration that he needs to get rid of. There's still some in there, and it wouldn't shock me that in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, a few more get shed.
A few more come out, yep.
Yeah. Or some of these guys go, okay, now we got to work better because we can't pull the wool over Rui Costa's eyes, right?
Exactly.
And that's the hope. That's the hope. That's all we
That
can hope, right? But
Can
yeah.
you believe it's 3 a.m. over there and they still have not made any type of announcement and they're still going live? Elder Kunlut's been on TV for I don't know how many hours now.
Oh, there's big time ratings because normally
Oh
like
yeah,
at 3 a.m. they got nothing, especially during everything that's going on. I'm gonna do
yeah,
one last refresh here of the list. Let's see if they updated it. Yeah, the numbers are still the same, so it's
yeah.
they're dead firm. Yeah, it's
But I
very
think
funny.
it's safe to call it for Rui
Yeah,
Costa.
they had Samal right there on the thing. It's
Yeah.
actually I'm gonna do this for 2 seconds. Hopefully, it doesn't get the channel in trouble here. So I'm gonna do something that might get the channel slightly in trouble for a second here, and hopefully not. But it's just to kind of show. See the website. You go to Benfica. They got
Yeah.
the candidates. They got details on how to vote. They have lots of. They actually have the live stream actually playing on here, which is very cool.
Yeah, I know.
So
I noticed that earlier.
yeah, so it's if you don't normally see BTV, and it's kind of neat when you have it down there. So it's very cool how they've done it. But yeah, man, bright future ahead for the club.
I think so. I
Hopefully
think
we
so.
win the Liga, win Tasses, put on a good fight. Bayern Munich's going to be, enjoy the Barca high while you can because you don't get to enjoy these very often. So just enjoy it.
And I think the signing of João Mario and Yardimchuk in particular really helped recall. He went out and got things we needed this year.
Yeah.
It wasn't like off seasons in the past where we just shopped for players we could sell for at profit later. And that I think that was a big thing. That was a good change. He bought fewer players and there were players we needed. They added depth if nothing else, but we got, 2 starters out of this offseason's market.
Yeah, I think Rui Costa, if someone approaches Rui Costa about talent, I think he'll be, and I know there's criticism of Rui Costa where he was a sporting director, so a lot of talents we were getting, he was involved to an extent, but it's hard to tell how much of those talents, because based on the fraud that we saw, it seemed like some of those talents are being brought on because of connections with Vieira.
Right.
So he now, this was his first kind of broken transfer season because that's when all the criminality and the arrests happened, right? But he very smart with the Chuck, and it was his relationship with Shevchenko and him going out to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it's his personal contacts, and it will make a difference, man. I thought Rui Costa played with Cristiano Ronaldo.
Exactly.
If you need to do, I'm not saying we're bringing Ronaldo over. What I'm saying is, if you're trying to do a deal with Manchester United to loan over a player or bring a player from United that maybe is, how we got Vertonghen from Spurs.
Exactly.
It was the Portuguese contacts that helped bring Vertonghen last year.
Hey, maybe he'll bring Cavani finally.
Finally get Cavani.
It's a joke.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
That was the embarrassment of the season last year. It started off with that, and it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, and I think it'll be it'll make a big impact. I think when George was just talking about a player, I think Rui Costa will have better comprehension than when George Hughes was having a chat with Vieira.
Sure.
And so yeah, I'm excited, man. I'll leave it.
I saw that. That's what made me laugh.
Yeah.
I do have one question for you, Mario.
Yeah.
What issues, if any, do you wish had been addressed that were completely not even mentioned in this mini campaign? Really, it was a real fast campaign season.
I think they did not spend enough time on talking about what to do with this. They touched on the criminal event, that wrongdoings have happened, and it was quickly talk about it, move it aside, and really they should have focused on moving forward, like kind of saying, all right, this guy's not going to be involved with the club. We're going to rip his socio out. He's not going to be affiliated with us anymore. If he's found guilty, here's how we're going to go after him personally, and we're going to actually sue him financially to get money back for the club. Send a message that like this is not going to be tolerated again. I think that again that goes back to the conflict that Rui Costa has with Vieira, and I highly doubt we'll see that. What else would I have wanted to see? I would have. It's kind of tough. It's a good question. Anything you had?
I know Benitez quickly mentioned that he wanted the club to have taken a more direct role in fighting the cartón adepto, the fan ID card.
Yeah.
And he even mentioned that he thinks that the club should be suing the government over that for lost revenue. The club has stayed very coy on it, just like the others. Yeah. And Rui Costa does say that he wants Benfica to lead Portuguese football, and I think that would be one way to get at the forefront. We see one of our rivals, their fans sit in that section. They're the only team in the entire league that fill that section. But I think maybe they could have gone into that a little more. And With all the changes going on in football, we hear FIFA talking about a World Cup every 2 years. That's bad for Benfica,
Yeah.
obviously. Super League thing. I would have liked to hear, how the club is going to fight these things. Who is in our corner? Who are we aligned with, and just where do the people in charge of our club stand on some of these things? We really didn't get that when the Super League kind of dropped. I think we stayed quiet. I think we made a statement, we made a comunicado, but
Yeah,
I really would like to see a
yeah.
strong position on these matters, because I am very concerned. I told my audience on my show, I'm very concerned of where this game's going to be in 10 or 20 years because of the direction that the global game's going in, with all the not hostile, but the takeovers, and now the way FIFA and is trying to fight the club game, and you got the international game and the club game butting heads. And a World Cup every 2 years, I think, is not good for anybody. I don't hear anybody asking for
Yeah.
that.
I think the pace of monetary growth, and here's my quick
Hmm.
take on it, is the fact that these were community organizations. Even though
Hmm.
they don't look at FIFA like a community organization, but it truly
Right.
was a bunch of confederations getting together,
Sure.
UEFA, things of sort. The clubs were community organizations, and they also had their FAs. And in the last 20 years, that fundamentally shifted. The entities and how much money they're making. And as the old guard, because some of these people had people from the 1960s still
Yeah.
operating FIFA and
Right.
UEFA and board of directors. But in the last 10, 15 years, this next generation of people seeing this multiple of money have gone hyper greedy and gone, okay,
Hmm.
it's like anything else with corporations to an extent where they go,
Yeah.
okay, if we can move the decimal a few more points, we make X
Hmm.
millions and more millions. And they stop looking at the collateral damage, which is the sport itself, the health of the club, the fans.
Right.
And the Super League would have been a decimation of the pyramid structure. It would have been a decimation of tons of
Hmm.
clubs. And people go, oh, who cares about Tondela? I'm like, well, there's a lot of actual jobs across
Yes.
Europe.
Exactly.
There is, if people say, oh, who cares about these small, if these players aren't good enough, things of sort. The only reason Portugal has a Euro is because of that small club that gave
Exactly.
Eder a chance, kept Eder in the
Sure.
game,
Hmm.
and let Eder survive in the sport so he can make it on the bench in the Euro and scores the
Yeah.
Euro winning goal. Teams, countries like England, Spain, they're countries that would benefit greatly from it and continue to benefit their domestic sport. Portugal would get decimated both on the
Of
national
course.
team
Of
level.
course.
Like it wouldn't show up right away, but it would over time. It would gut your youth system. It got a lot of things. So yeah, that's a great point, and it would have been nice if he said something on it. I do think one topic or one thing that wasn't really touched on much was the relationship between the big three, because
Hmm.
the last few years it got extremely hostile, like very nasty.
It's toxic. Yeah.
I do think there's a weird opening where I know the Sporting fans are pissed about João Mario coming to us, but you have to think this: Varandas seems like a level-headed president at Sporting.
Hmm.
He's got a manager that's a diehard Benfiquista.
Yeah. And we
He
got a Sportingista.
and we
It's
got a Sportingista as our manager, but João Mario coming to Benfica, he was under Ruben Amorim. Rui
hmm
Costa knows João Mario. He's like seen him
Yeah.
throughout the networks of the Seleção. If there's a meeting of presidents and things of the sort, and Rui Costa's there talking with the guys at Sporting, I got a feeling the relation. I'm not asking for us to be best buds, but you know, we are weaker when we're conniving against each other. We're rivals. We beat
hmm
each other. We want to be the best. But if you get to the point where we got to the stage where it was very destructive, and I'll point to
hmm
the guys up north, they're pretty much proactively trying to find ways of ending clubs
Yeah.
for their own benefit. But
Exactly.
it decimates the league. But I think that will help. I think Porto's got their own issues coming with Pinto Costa holding on for dear life in his
Yeah.
final days. So and they're struggling. But I think if this league, and it's the uniting of the TV rights, and they can unite their focus, they can then go beyond and look at it. And I really look at the situation that the Dutch league did, because I know we're higher than the Dutch league,
hmm
but we're not too dissimilar. Like population wise, and you think of the
Yeah.
leagues, you think of
It's
like
similar.
PSVs, Ajax, things of sort, right?
Everything's comparable. Yeah.
Yeah. What they went ahead did, because they're willing to collaborate together and be unified on their rights,
hmm
and same with the Belgian league, they merged.
Yeah.
That's an example where you keep the pyramid structure running, and you make your league a little bit stronger, a little financially more competitive, and you grow it. I think a lot of leagues, instead of going the Super League direction, I think that's how you solve the current money gap. Is some of these leagues need to start doing some kind of consolidation of work, keep the structure of the pyramid intact so it continues to grow, and it will allow. Because I think what they did was smart. Ajax and I think 2 years from now, 3 years from now, will be a little bit more competitive. It
Mhm.
doesn't move the needle, but it does help. But I don't know if they have enough time to build that out, because this Super League movement is moving
Yeah.
fast. It's moving aggressive. And it is the biggest risk for the club, in a sense, right?
And I don't think Barca and Real Madrid are going to let up on it because of the situation they're both in.
Yeah. It's
They're
self-inflicted.
selling it as their only method of survival right
yeah.
now.
And at the same time, you know what? I think, Bayern Munich and PSG were right to
Mhm.
tell Barca and
Yeah,
Real Madrid, saying, you
agreed.
guys have screwed yourselves. This is
Yeah,
a you
exactly.
problem, not an us problem.
Mhm.
And the English clubs are rich as heck, and they're going, you know what? We got to almost, the English clubs, when it was all said and done, it looked like they got caught up in the stupidity of it.
Yeah. They
And now,
snuck in and snuck out and got
then they
out of
got
there
out.
quick.
And then
Yeah.
you look at the money, you look at Newcastle getting a new owner, and you look at the
Mhm.
money in the EPL, and they're kind of saying, you know what? Do we want to try that again? I
Yeah.
don't think they do. Like, Real Madrid really wants it. But an example of this merger of leagues, and I know I'm getting off topic, is because Serie A is in trouble. And you look at AC Milan and Juventus, those clubs really want us. They're also in trouble. That's two leagues that can merge together. They can do it what
Mhm.
Holland did. If you had Serie A and La Liga as the same entity with an open pyramid structure going
Mhm.
for Champions League and seeding, it'd be a far more competitive league, far more entertaining.
Mhm.
In a magical world, I know we're going to get cut out of it, but you kind of almost go to
Right.
the idea of the Latin League, the original, before the
Yeah.
European Cup, it was the Latin League.
It was the Latin Cup, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you go the full extent where it was France, Portugal, Spain, and Italy, but um, you'd think of a league that had Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Valencia, Sevilla, Roma, AC
Yeah.
Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, Napoli, Benfica, Porto, and Sporting, and you kind of
Mhm.
round up a 20 list of teams, and you got promotion and relegation. The
Mhm.
amount of that is a league that would compete with the EPL from a
Mhm.
marketing standpoint, for money. I think that's the challenge that Real Madrid has, is they wanted to beat the EPL club, same with
Yeah.
Barcelona. And for a good span of over a decade, they dug deep, they spent big, they
Yeah.
bought Ronaldo. You had Barca buying Suarez, and you had
Mhm.
basically these two La Liga teams going in and bullying EPL clubs
Yeah.
and outbidding them and outspending them, and they were winning Champions League titles for it.
Sure.
But they really never had the financial backing to be doing
Yeah.
any of this business, and now it's blown up in their face, right?
Of course. And did you
So
see Laporta said he actually was hoping Messi would play for free? I mean, come on.
they're nuts. They're nuts, and
Yeah.
I think also just the way that they've, and Real Madrid has gone out of their way to backstab anyone. As soon as you
Mhm.
don't, as soon as they didn't need Raul,
Yeah.
I
Bye.
thought how they treated Raul at Real Madrid, a legendary player, was
And
disgusting.
Casillas too.
Casillas was terrible how they treated him, and then when it came Ronaldo to leave, kind of
Oh
the
yeah.
attitude and arrogance of Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And Barcelona is no different. Barcelona, in terms of how they treated Ronaldinho at his
Yeah.
final states. Messi, they're crying because they're crying not because of Messi. They're crying
Because
because
they're
they're
desperate.
bankrupt. They're
Yeah,
broke.
they're bankrupt.
If they weren't in this financial situation, they'd kick Messi to the curb as soon as he was done in a heartbeat. But he wasn't
Mhm.
done yet.
Right.
But these clubs have had a certain level of arrogance the last 20 years, and it's
Mhm.
kind of it'd be a really cool kind of situation. Now, ES just brought up a neat thing, that Portugal and
Yeah.
Spain hosting a World Cup, right?
Mhm.
Antiquated stadiums. Yeah, here, like,
Oh, the stadiums in Italy are they're all municipal stadiums. The clubs aren't making any money unless
yeah,
you're Juventus, who
yeah.
own their own.
That's why a merger of the leagues. If you had a few leagues,
Yeah.
because the relegation promotion will naturally reward successful clubs, and the reality is Tondellas would be find a hard time making it to the first division. But at least it's if you
But
have
they
the
might be in a
pyramid.
level where they can survive.
Yeah, because then the second division of that league would have the Tondellas, they'd have the Real Betis, they'd
Mhm.
have the oh my god, the one that starts with a T, and Juventus, not Juventus, Juventus is
Torino.
Torino, yeah.
Torino.
They'd have, like, you'd have these neat, interesting leagues, just like the Championship in England is such a fun league to watch. Also, the money level there goes up, so there is a trickle down event. But yeah, I think Serie A is I do agree also with the racism thing. That's a whole other.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that is something where, again, these clubs have to get better, and that kind of almost goes to the cartel, the depth, where I
Yeah.
understand why people are against it, and I don't like it either, because I do
Mhm.
think it hurts the atmosphere of the stadium. But we also we have to get past the culture of saying that it's okay to throw a rock at a ref or
Of course,
a
of
self.
course.
And I think the problem in Portugal, it's self-made, is some knucklehead will do something and there's no punishment. There's no punishment for
Mhm.
the club. They'll €365 fine.
It's
Whatever.
laughable.
And it does nothing to the team, and they never really do any, like, you never hear about a lifelong ban or a serious ban of people.
Right. And there are some people that we know that should not be allowed in stadiums. And,
Yeah.
there's a leader of a clock that everyone knows
Yeah, you
is
shouldn't be allowed.
guilty of horrible things.
Yeah, and you see it, and I'll say it from our side, because I know it's there's idiots at the other ones, but I'll say when I was at the Taça Portugal final with the supporters, and I'm loving it. We're jumping, flares are flying. I could barely see, but some knucklehead grabbed the flare and hucked it, and he hit a girl in the back of the head, and the flare exploded in the back of her head. Thank God she was okay.
Yeah.
But like, I was like, dude, what the heck? And all the guys around us, everyone around us, like, got livid and started booing at the guy, and people started yelling. I was saying, are you fucking nuts? He could have killed her. He could have hurt her. But
and unfortunately, we killed a Sporting. One of our fans killed a Sporting fan in 95, 96 at the Cup final for something like that.
Yeah, and so you kind of see people that do things, but there is, and this is. I don't want to blame partly it falls on the clubs, but it does fall on the government for enforcement. So I guess their solution was the cartón de identidad.
Yeah, they just don't have good solutions. That's
they don't have solutions.
The government's incompetent. I mean,
yeah, that's exactly it. So and you have Portuguese bureaucity. If we don't,
it's horrible.
Yeah, we just like North American bureaucracy. Look at the Portuguese one. It's even worse. But it's a situation I think they have to get better at addressing in Europe, and it's you gotta have it. You can't have a situation where 2 people or 3 people label an entire fan base. I think it's wrong. I look at Mexico and the situation with Mexico and CONCACAF with the homophobic slurs,
and it's not being resolved.
It's not being resolved, and it's not like all the Mexicans are doing it. It's a sliver of those fans are doing it. And you get, like, all you need to do is get 50 people to make that chant loud enough,
because
and
everyone's quieting down.
Yeah,
and
they hear it, and then all of a sudden the game gets stopped. It looks horrific on Mexico. It's happened to 2 games that Canada's faced Mexico now.
Yeah, it happens every time they play.
Yeah, and it's getting to a point where you need to. It's the lack of action, because if all of a sudden Mexico gets deducted points, they start not qualifying for the World Cup, because trust me, the Mexicans will take care of the Mexicans. They will take those guys out back and show them what a slur is.
I think they should just be threatened to be yanked out of the 2026 bid. And that will make it go away. Or if it doesn't, you yank them. I mean, it's only I think 3 stadiums.
Point deduction, point deduction, and then eventually, and then leads that.
Yeah,
like they're supposed to play under closed door scenario, and then they're playing. They reversed it. Yeah, we just played them this past. That was our last game.
That was a great game.
That was a fun game. Canada's on a high. I'm loving this, but we're getting to CONCACAF stuff
now.
It's
so far off.
Sorry, we're off the arcade. Benfica election. Congratulations, Rui Costa. I think the fan base is rightfully excited. I think the majority is rightfully excited.
The majority is.
Yeah, there's going to be people that are sour. Don't let it be sour.
For the other side, like in any election, when you lose, you have a job also going forward to keep those that won accountable and to be right there the moment that a slip up happens.
Yeah. So, and you need that. You need a check and balance. So that
exactly.
So don't be defeated. I know a lot of these groups. I've been involved in a lot of these groups. Keep the good fight going, because keeping Rui Costa honest will make the club better. And if Rui Costa it makes your life hard because he is honest, let's say if he does deliver, then it's a win-win, man. A win-win. So let's just enjoy it and all the fun stuff. But yeah, we got off topic a bit there. I love talking to Mike, man.
Which Mike always happens,
Mike follows like the local level to an extra extreme, and I'm a big fan of the grassroots sports. So I love talking to Mike. I get a kick out of it, and so I got to pull my urge to not make this a 3-hour show. But guys, we'll have Alex, Joe, Luigi, we'll have all them on soon enough. Maybe they'll do something tomorrow. Maybe they'll, I don't know. They're trying to figure out some timing to get them together.
But I don't know how you do it, man, with people in 3 different time zones most of the time, and you manage to get everybody together.
We officially got to a stage now where we got enough guys that it's like, if Alex can get together with Joe, run a show. If Luigi can get together with Ethan, so now it's like, because it used to be like getting us all together and it was hurting cats, and now it's working more like a cohesive. Of course
it is. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. I did, and I actually know that I'm American, but I actually know it's your Thanksgiving this weekend.
Yeah, so we kind of warm up the Thanksgiving Festivus first, and then you guys ramp it up with Black Friday and the madness that you guys do for your Thanksgiving and the football and everything of the sort. But yeah, for all the Canadians, enjoy Thanksgiving. For the non-Canadians, go try some turkey. It's not a bad thing to eat once in a while, but I only ever do eat it at Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Same here.
But yeah, it's very good. And I know
I
your
know
anthem.
your anthem too, Cynthia. I even know the little French part. But 3 years of playing against Ottawa Fury, I learned the little French
Yeah,
part.
especially in Ottawa, they play.
Yeah,
There's
they
so-
do
there-
the little, just a
li-
little piece of it,
a
not
little
like in
bit of
Montreal.
yeah. Montreal all French, Ottawa a
Yeah,
little bit of half and half with the little piece.
yeah,
You go out west, all Canadian, all English,
all English. Yeah,
which is hilarious. But it's funny. Canada and the U.S. are a weird lot. I love the world. I love Europe.
yeah.
I love everywhere. But it is funny how in our sports it's all the Canadian anthem and the U.S. anthem is big. And you
Mhm.
never see the Portuguese anthem, the English anthem in club level because that's not where
Yeah,
it belongs.
it's just not in the culture. Yeah,
But here it is. It's a very
yeah,
kind of it's very funny when people come here. All of a sudden, it's the Stars and Stripes or the O Canadas come out, or you got the Mexican anthem also, and it just boom, right?
yeah.
Where it's in in Portugal, they'd be like, "What the heck are you guys doing? We're here to watch football. We're not here to watch the national team. What is this? It's not the Seleção." Um, but yeah, happy Columbus Day. Oh, you guys got Columbus. Is that a thing for you guys now?
That
Or?
is, some places have done away with it and called it. They've changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day, but it's a bank holiday, if nothing else, everywhere
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah.
But
We
for
just
me, it's a work day like any other.
yeah, like most of them. We got that.
Yeah.
We added a new one because they're always adding new stuff. The Truth and Reconciliation for the Indigenous kind of populations.
Yeah.
Just over a bit ago, they added
Mhm.
recently. But originally it was supposed to be like a holiday, and now they've gone with it's just a day, like Remembrance
Yeah.
Day. It's there, but go to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Vai trabalhar, vai
Yeah.
trabalhar. Remember they weren't too kind to this indigenous, but get back to work. Is
Mhm.
kind of the message in general. But yeah,
Yeah.
outside of that, it's yeah, guys, appreciate all the likes, the
Yeah.
views.
The chat was on fire tonight.
Yeah, everyone in the chat, it was good, and I hope everyone's
Yeah.
feeling excited about the club because I know we are, and I think most of the fan base is. And if there's a few people that are sour, they'll be fine. They'll be cheering for Benfica soon enough, anyways.
And we got the Tasa next week, so
Yeah, hopefully they do good, man. All right,
Yeah.
man. I'll get you
All
back
right.
on, Mike. You guys have
All
a
right.
great day.
Thank you,
I'll
guys.
get the outro going. Peace.
All right, have a good one.